Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the absolute phenomenal story of how one guy completely revolutionized global sports. We're looking at the making of basketball's ultimate icon, a figure who achieved a level of fame and dominance that's almost hard to wrap your head around today. We live in this era of instant viral moments, social media, and global streaming, but this story, it begins way before all of that. We're going to explore how one individual's sheer will and, obviously, generational talent captured the attention of the entire world, setting a standard for greatness that athletes in literally every single sport are still trying to match. To really get a grip on his impact, we kind of have to set the stage here. Long before the massive, multi-billion-dollar sneaker culture we know today even existed, there was Michael Jordan. He used a signature leap that genuinely seemed to defy gravity, and with it, he turned a Chicago basketball franchise into what can only be described as a global religion. He didn't just play the game, right? He fundamentally changed the way the entire world looked at competitive excellence. But here's the thing. The man behind the legendary number 23 wasn't just handed this success. He definitely wasn't an overnight sensation. He had to build himself into an icon, step by grueling step. All right, let's dive into part one, the spark and the cut. So, tracing his roots really shows us where this unparalleled drive came from, starting with his birth in Brooklyn, New York, before his family relocated down to Wilmington, North Carolina, where sports basically became a daily fixture in his household. But the true emotional whiplash of his early story, it happens right here, in 1978. Picture this. As a sophomore at Emsley A. Laney High School, he faces a completely heartbreaking rejection. He fails to make the varsity basketball team. Yet, from that absolutely devastating low, we trace a staggering turnaround. Fast forward just a few short years to 1982, and as a freshman at the University of North Carolina, he dreams a breathtaking, championship-winning jump shot. That single moment gave the world its very first glimpse of his ice-cold clutch gene. Look at the contrast here. It's just staggering. I mean, you have a roughly 5'11" kid who wasn't deemed good enough for his high school varsity squad. For most people, getting cut like that, that's the end of the road. But for him, actually, scratch that. It was the exact fuel he needed. Powered by that specific rejection, a massive 4-inch growth spurt, and endless grueling hours on the backyard court battling his older brother Larry, he entirely transformed his game. Just a couple of years later, that same kid who got cut became a dominant McDonald's All-American. It's the absolute ultimate proof of how hard work and an untamable internal fire can just totally rewrite a person's trajectory. Moving on to our next chapter, reigning over the 1990s. Drafted third overall by the Chicago Bulls back in 1984, he entered an NBA that was, honestly, practically begging for a new face. And boy, he did not make them wait. He immediately dazzled crowds with stunning scoring outputs that left opponents completely stunned. He was so spectacular right out of the gate that he easily cruised to Rookie of the Year honors. The foundation for absolute professional dominance was officially laid. But, as we know, to achieve true immortality, individual brilliance simply isn't enough. You can score all the points in the world, but if you don't win championships, well, the legacy is incomplete. Jordan and the Bulls first had to persevere and break through grueling, punishing physical rivalries. Most notably, running into a brick wall known as the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons actually implemented a brutal defensive strategy, historically known as the Jordan Rules, which was basically a systematic approach specifically designed to physically batter him every single time he drove to the basket. It wasn't just a test of skill. It was a profound test of physical and mental endurance. And through sheer perseverance, he and the Bulls finally broke through that barrier. So what was the reward for pushing through all those physical rivalries? A historic first three-peat, securing 3 consecutive championships from 1991 to 1993. Then, right in the middle of his absolute prime, came what we can call the pivot. Inspired by the tragic loss of his father, he made a brief, highly surprising detour into professional baseball. But hey, the story was far from over. He returned to the hardwood with a chillingly confident 2-word message to the world, "I'm back." And what followed? A second three-peat from 1996 to 1998. Just incredible. Just let these numbers sink in for a second. 6 championships, 5 most valuable player awards, 10, yes, 10 scaring titles, and perhaps most incredibly, 6 finals MVPs in 6 finals appearances. He literally never lost in the finals. No way. This right here is what cementing an unmatched legacy of dominance looks like on paper. It's a resume so flawless, it honestly almost looks fictional. Which brings us to the next phase. More than an athlete. Because, let's be real,
He didn't just participate in his sport, he elevated it globally. He became the primary catalyst for drawing international eyes to the game, most notably by leading the iconic 1992 Dream Team to Olympic gold in Barcelona. But his reach went well past the stadium walls, right? He redefined sports marketing forever through a partnership with Nike that turned a simple athletic shoe line into a worldwide cultural cornerstone. He proved, definitively, that an athlete could transcend sports to become a global brand, paving the way for generations of athletes to come.
Limits, like fear, are often just an illusion. Man, this famous quote gives us such a profound window into his fierce internal drive. It was often called the ultimate competitive fire. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to absolutely dominate every single facet of competition, and he forced everyone around him, his teammates, his coaches, his organization, to dramatically elevate their own standards just to keep up with him. He made greatness a mandatory requirement. It's a pretty powerful reminder for all of us that true leadership often means demanding the impossible from yourself before you demand it from others. And finally, let's look at the everlasting standard. Going from a high school kid getting cut from the varsity team to a global icon whose impact is still heavily felt decades later, his journey is nothing short of incredible. He left behind a standard of excellence that future generations continue to chase, and honestly, they likely always will. So as we wrap up this explainer on his monumental career, we've got to ask you, drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Is Michael Jordan your greatest of all time? Thanks so much for hanging out with us, and keep striving for your own greatness.